Yeah, and thank you so much for having me. It, yeah, exactly. So it was a fantastic first few days of trading for pro shares. We've definitely learned a lot at our team, and we plan on taking that forward as we trade tomorrow.
And the fact that it is obviously futures based, that is what has been approved so far in terms of Bitcoin linked exchanges. What is the virtue of having multiple entries in this area? Because of course they are essentially set up the same way. There has been an issue, I believe, when you have just a single Bitcoin futures ETF right now. There are position limits that the CME enforces. In other words, you can only get so big or so active in a given contract.
That's correct. That's correct. So position limits, I think, are less of a concern as more ETFs do enter the space, because there will be large holders of these contracts, and it will be harder for one entity to control the market. So this is why we actually believe that having a handful of these products is good, and we do welcome it.
Is there a drawback that to there being a futures exchange? Obviously, a futures ETF. Obviously, you have kind of the friction of rolling to new futures. There's some kind of straying from the underlying Bitcoin price over time, perhaps. Although we have seen, things like an oil futures ETF has existed for some years.
Right. I think that's a good nuanced question. Regarding roll costs, we do plan to roll into the next month's futures contracts as efficiently as possible. And we do believe that our team's deep expertise in these markets does give us an edge over other offerings. But to your greater point about a futures-based ETF rather than a physically backed ETF, and that's obviously been a question we get asked a lot. We think it's a fantastic opening to have this futures-based ETF. The SEC has clearly signaled a preference for futures ETFs versus a spot fund. And it's easier to put an already regulated product into a registered, regulated ETF wrapper than it is to take an unregulated product and put it into that regulated wrapper. So we think that this is a good time for a good structure.
Okay, so just to dig into that a little bit more, I mean, obviously you're focused on launching this